The purpose of yajna for us spiritual aspirants is to have mukta sangha. That means to become free from all concerns, free from desires that lead us downwards. So yajna, the concept of yajna, it takes us higher and higher. But if you have to go higher, you will have to give up that which is lower. This is an essential thing. You cannot go higher without giving up the lower ones. Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. We have been studying from the third chapter. We have the various aspects of yajna, the concept of yajna, the very concept of yajna that Sri Krishna is trying to give to us is mostly philosophical concept, that is performing work in a spirit of perfection, that is yajnartha, one can go higher and higher. And the purpose of yajna for us spiritual aspirants is to have mukta sangha. That means to become free from all concerns, free from the desires that lead us downwards. So yajna, the concept of yajna, it takes us higher and higher. But if you have to go higher, you will have to give up that which is lower. This is an essential thing. You cannot go higher without giving up the lower ones. While we all make efforts to go higher, sometimes we just get bogged down by silly things, small petty things, petty concerns, petty worries, and petty feelings towards others, etc. And that drags us down. Again, we make an effort. But nonetheless, the aim must be to become free. The aim is not to become tied down, but the aim must be to become free. That is the idea. So, why should we perform karma, action, as yajna? In the next 4 verses, that is 10, 11, 12, and 13, Sri Krishna explains the fact. He brings in the prevailing Vedic concept also in that. So I will read all the 4 verses together, as well as the running meaning of them, and then we shall discuss for a few minutes on these 4 verses. Saha yajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam yeshavostvishta kamadhuk devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayanta shreyah paramavapsyatha Ishthan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitah tair dattana pradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha yajna shishtashina santo muchyante sarva kilbishaihi punjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. In the beginning, Prajapati, having created men together with yajna, that is selfless work dedicated to God, or the Vedic sacrifice as their duty, declared, "By this shall you multiply. May this be to you the cow of plenty, yielding all your wants." And then you cherish the Devas with Yajna, and may the Devas in turn bless you with rain and other desired gifts. Thus, mutually cherishing, you shall attain the highest good. Worshipped by sacrifices, the Devas will give you the desired objects of enjoyment. They are verily thieves who enjoy their gifts without giving their share in return. And then those persons who eat what is left after sacrifice are released from all sin. But those who cook food for the self alone without sharing it with others, such degraded men eat sin. Strong words, especially the last verse is quite very strong. Probably Sri Krishna wanted to impress upon us the need to share and care for the others. So when action, karma, becomes a yajna, it no longer has the strength to bind us, because what you have given out, what you have given away, does not belong to you. So it is a sacrifice. So you have given it away, and therefore it will not bind you. And this whole world that we live in is equated to a chakra, that means a wheel. This is a samsara chakra, wherein the sun, the moon, the stars, the air, the fire, the water, the earth, the plants, everything, all are constantly offering their sacrifices. Continuous offering of sacrifices is going on. This is something which we need to understand here. So if we try to stop this wheel, if we try to obstruct the movement of this wheel, then we are doomed. That's what we have done in the past 100, 150, 200 years. We have tried to meddle with nature so much so that it has become counterproductive, and all the pandemic, etc., that we are facing is a result of all of that. So if karma becomes an offering, it's a continuous offering to the divine, wherein our needs are met, but we do not become greedy. We do not become over consuming, so to say, or keeping more than what is needed. Then this whole chakra, that means the wheel of samsara that has been created, is being obstructed. So Sri Krishna says here, Sahayagnya praja srishtva, along with creation of the humans, Pura Prajapati. The Prajapati means the creator, Brahma in Hindu pantheon. He also gave to us a tool. A tool is an astra, is that by which we conduct our activities, we cooking tools or building tools, etc., etc. So along with the creation, the Lord or the Prajapati, Brahma, creator, also provided this tool. And what is this tool? This tool is called the Yajna. Yajna tool, he gave it to us. And he said, Anena prasavishyadvam yeshavaha astu tista kamaduk. If you use this tool, so to say, if you can use this tool properly, not improperly, then you will multiply. Multiplication here does not just mean creation or multiplication of humans. Multiplication of virtues, multiplication of jnana, science, technology, whatever it is, all of this will be multiplied. So he gave us this tool. He says, by this shall you multiply, and may this be to you the cow of plenty, yielding all your wants. Now, this is reference to Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu, the wish fulfilling cow. Now, all of us, or mostly Indians from Hindu background, are quite familiar with the story of Vashishta and Vishwamitra as well as the Kamadhenu. Vashishta had this Kamadhenu, and Vishwamitra, the king, when he went to the forest with 10,000 army and they were very hungry, Vashishta was able to feed all of them, house all of them through the Kamadhenu, through the cow, wish-fulfilling cow. Now Vishwamitra became so greedy that he wanted the cow for himself. And therefore, he tries to snatch it away from Vashishta, but the cow then creates hundreds of thousands of warriors and destroys the whole army of Vishwamitra. This is symbolic. So in the same way, the Lord has given us this cow called the yajna, that is sacrifice. So if we can use it properly and not become greedy, we will get whatever we want. There is no doubt about that. But if we try to take away more than what we need, and if we try to destroy the whole edifice of yajna, then we are doomed. That's what he tries to impress upon us through this verse, the 10th verse. But if we take this term yajna in the traditional manner, that is to mean the ritual, yajna and yaga, these two terms are there. This, if we take it that way, then this 10th verse will mean that Brahma gave this tool to us called yajna and said, through this you invoke the subtle energies of nature called the devas. In the next verse he comes up. You invoke the subtle energies called the devas and please them with your offerings. That means with your respects towards them. They will in turn grant you the boon that, or they will grant you what is needed for you, what is required of you. If we go to the basis or the roots of this version of yajna, that is wherein offerings were made to the fire, offerings were made for the different deities, etc., we come to know that from time immemorial, humans have been trying to understand the origin of nature itself. How did this nature come about? How is it that the clouds are pouring out rain? How is it that sun is shining his radiance upon us, and so on and so forth? So there has been that inquiry into nature from the beginning of time itself, so to say. And so then they found out that if we are able to harness these energies, that is to say, if we are able to please these energies, harness might be a different meaning. So if we can please these energies, then what will happen is we will get the bounty from those beings or those energies. So for example, they named the power behind the blazing sun as the Agni. And then they named the power behind rain as Varuna, power, Shakti, behind the rain as Varuna. The power behind storm or wind as the Marut, and so on and so forth. So they then thought that these powers are greater or much more powerful than ourselves, higher than ourselves. Therefore, instead of fighting them, let us respect them, let us ask them what we want, and then we will be granted what we want. Thus, the hymns in praise of all of these deities poured out from their heart, out of the fullness of their heart, out of the respect from their being, they started coming up with these prayers, which we find in the Vedas. And they also found that it is not only humans, but also the other beings, the cattle and the oceans and the trees, etc. They are also a part of this yajna. They are also a part of this yajna, and therefore they also need to be protected by us. That sense of protection also came to our Vedic rishis. We need to protect the cows, we need to protect the animals, we need to protect the plants and so on and so forth, because they are mukha, that means they cannot voice out their protest, and therefore we need to protect them. That idea also came to our ancient Vedic people. So yajna thus became a connection, a connecting link between humans and the gods, so to say. I am using the term gods in reference to the yajna. That means these deities or these forces or these powers that are behind the whole of nature, they call them as devas. Deva means actually divate iti deva. Diva means that which lights up, that which enlightens, or that which illumines is called as deva. Those beings who are bright, who illumine, or who possess much greater power than ourselves, they call them as devas. Therefore, thus there was this thanksgiving as well as appealing. Two things. One is you give thanks, and also you beg of the divine to take care of yourself. Once you have thanked them for giving you life, and then secondly, you are also begging them to maintain our life. So thus there was great humility in the hearts of the Vedic rishis, and thus they had gained a great harmony within themselves as well as with nature. The main difference between science and yoga, science and religion, is in that science tends to exploit nature. Science tends to exploit nature, whereas yoga acknowledges the utility of nature, but also gives it due respect. That's why it says Prakriti Matarma. That means this nature is nothing but our own mother. She is our mother. Mother Nature addresses the Prakriti as mother. So by taking refuge in Prakriti, yoga tries to extract the blessings of the Prakriti, whereas science challenges nature and considers nature as a slave and demands or tries to extract with force. Yoga also tries to extract, but with humility, whereas science tries to extract it with force, thinking that nature is our slave. So now the yajna became a social necessity also. When people came together, when they gathered together and expressed their gratitude to nature and prayed for the fulfillment of their needs, they also found that it started responding. See, people who have lived with nature, who are with nature, they can understand the mind of nature also. This is something very wonderful. In 2011, there was this tsunami. 2010 or 2011, I cannot remember right now. Anyway, this great tsunami was there. And then I heard this from somebody in India that in Andaman Islands, in remote Andaman Islands, there are these aboriginals who do not come outside. They are not seen even today. They are a protected community. So people from outside are not allowed to go there. Only one or two have developed a relationship with them, and they only can go. Otherwise, they will kill. They have killed people who have gone there before. So now, before the tsunami came, all these people who were living on the side of the ocean, they all went up to higher ground. Not a single one of them was hurt or did they die. Not a single one of them. So the Indian government became very concerned that they might have all perished because they were by the side of the ocean. So then they sent helicopters, and then they saw that these people were shooting arrows towards the helicopter, saying that they are safe over there. So, and they also said that hours before the tsunami came, the ants and also the elephants and all animals, they all went and took shelter in a higher ground. These are actual things. So the people can know that when the nature is going to become violent, they know how nature protects them also. That's also key. Therefore, they had this wonderful bond between nature and themselves. Therefore, for them, nature was something that is to be revered, which has to be respected, so much so that they gave nature the status of the divine, as a manifestation of the divine. So Sri Krishna says in the 11th verse, Devan bhava yata anena dedeva bhavayanto. You cherish the devas with yajna, and may the devas in turn bless you with rain and other desired gifts. So, another take on this term Deva is the Jnana Indriyas. You know, all of us have got Karmendriyas, the 5 organs of action, and also the 5 organs of knowledge or 5 organs of perception. Jnana Indriyas. That is the eyes, the spirit behind the eyes, the spirit behind the ears, of the nose, of the tongue, and of the skin. All of these are known as the Jnana Indriyas. Now we have in our scriptures different descriptions of the deities which are behind all of these Indriyas. Indriyas means the senses, all of these senses. Each of them have been given a particular name or a particular place, and they are respected and revered. So, if we, in our normal day-to-day life, if we can serve these 5 organs of knowledge with respect, with difference and with respect, then the buddhi or the intellect, which is the controller of all of these 5 organs, they will also, the buddhi also will serve us through giving vidya. Vidya means knowledge. Vidya means education. Vidya also means knowledge over there. So the eyes, when we are using all the 5 organs of perception, let us also be aware that they are also devas. That means they are also that one that which reveals the world to us. And Sri Ramakrishna goes a little further into it. And he says that these organs that have been given to them, if it can be purified, if it can be treated with respect, if it can gain respect from us, from our mind, then those will assume wonderful forms. And he says that even in the Patanjali also talks about it later in the last chapter. So Sri Ramakrishna says that once you start thinking of the divine and then beholding the form of the divine through these wonderful eyes, and then trying to enjoy the presence of the divine through the eyes will gain such power as to be able to see, to have many darshans, many kinds of visions. One will be, Sri Ramakrishna says, one will be able to hear divine music one will be able to smell the divine scents. One will also be able to taste the divine taste. All of these are from realized souls. We do not mistrust them. Therefore, these devas also can mean that these that they are the 5 organs of perception or 5 organs of knowledge also. In fact, all of us are aware of that famous Gayatri mantra, Dhiyo yo naha prachodayat. Dhi is the intellect over there. May our intellect, that means when I am using all my 5 or all my organs for that matter, not only 5 but all the rest of them also, if I am using it as if I am worshipping the divine through them, that means properly using them as if I am worshipping the divine through them, then that dhi, that intellect, that supreme intellect will become pleased with us and will reveal its great secrets to us. They will guide us. They will take us or make us move towards the divine. That is another take on this Gayatri mantra. So, karma, that means action, is very important. And karma and buddhi, that means the intellect, along with it, jnana, is important. Both of them, they complement each other. There is a story. There was fire in a village, and so the people all started. Those who were able, they all started running away and escaping. Then in the village there was a blind man and a lame man. Both of them were living together. Now, how will the blind escape? Doesn't know where the door is or where to go. And how will the lame person escape? Because he cannot walk. So the blind man said, "Look here, you sit on my shoulders and you start guiding me, and I will guide you, and then we can escape and go out." So that is to say, the blind knowledge as well as the karma, both of them, if they come together, knowledge and action, if both of them are together, one can escape the bonds of death, one can escape the bonds of this samsara. That is another take on this. So, in the 12th verse, Ishthan bhogan ivo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha, he says that we should give a portion of our objects, whatever is there, to the devas. We should give a portion of it to the devas. That is to say, we have to give back to nature or even to the world around us whatever, a portion of whatever we gain or whatever we acquire. Tairdattan apradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha. If one does not do so, Sri Krishna says they are verily like thieves. Probably it's a bit strong word. We can we can take it as ungrateful. Ungrateful people. That's what we should take it as. Of course, stena, a thief, is one who takes without permission and who does not value your privacy. So that is another thing. So tairdattana pradayebhyo. In Indian tradition, giving the agrabhaga, that means the first portion of whatever we get to the divine is a norm. Agrabhaga, the first portion of it. So in our homes, when our mothers used to cook on wooden or coal hearths, they used to take out 5 portions of it and then keep it aside. They will keep it on the hearth, and then after the cooking is after the cooking is done, they will put that aside together, and then they will take it out and then give it to the dogs or something like that. And then a portion also was kept for the atithi. That means the beggars in India. It was the beggars. So they used to keep a portion of the food also for the atithi. Atithi devo bhava. So beggars are not considered as beggars, but as atithi over there. Minute insects may also lose their life there. What did I say first? Kandani, and then Peshani, then Kulli. Kulli is our chula, stove. So while we are cooking, sometimes some insects might come and they can fall, especially the fireflies and all that. Sometimes they are attracted towards fire and they may die over there. And then Kulli, Udakumbhi. Udakumbhi is Udaka Kumbhi. It means the water pot. So when people used to go and fetch water from the tank or from the well, so they used to go and then they used to get the water. Naturally, some insects might fall into the water and they may also die over there. Udakumbhi cha marjani. Marjani is the broom. Nowadays, our broom or our vacuum cleaner. So many insects die over there. There's no doubt about that. Panchasuna grihasthasya. That means these five actions or 5 materials, they constantly create sin in the household of a grihastha, of a householder. So what has to be done in order to in order to negate these 5 sins? Vedic rishis came up with the Pancha Mahayagnyas. Pancha Mahayagnyas are Adhyapanam Brahma Yajna. First thing is Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna. That means by teaching or by studying the sacred books written by our sages, or trying to follow the teachings of the ancestors. That is one thing. That means you respectfully read them or try to remember them or try to talk about them. That is called as Adhyapanam. So that by that you will acquire a lot of merits. Then comes Pitru Yajnastu Tarpanam. Tarpana, that is offering the oblations to our Pitrus, that is the departed ancestors. They have given us this life. We are here because of our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, great-great-grandparents, etc. So we should, the least that we can do is to daily of remember them and make an offering of our heart to them. Tarpanam. Tarpana is also physically also you offer some water or some offerings to them. That is done in some households. And then the third one is Homaha Daivaha. Deva Yajna. Homa and Havan, that means the fire sacrifice, etc., or even worship, etc. It is called as the Deva Yajna. So Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna, then comes the Pitri Yajna, the third comes the Deva Yajna. And then fourth comes Balir Bhutaha. Balir Bhutaha Nr Yajna. Then comes the Bhuta Yajna or Nr Yajna. Bhuta means all other beings, offering food, grains, etc. to beings and to humans, etc. is called as Nr Yajna. Then Athithi Pujanam is another Yajna which has been mentioned, offering shelter and food to those who do not have it, provide for them or for the guests, etc. That is called as the Athithi Yajna. These are the 5 different kinds of yajnas that were given to us by the Vedic rishis. So, Ishtan Tairdattana Pradayebhyo. So, this whole Virat Purusha, that means this whole universe, in the Vedic concept of the universe is that this universe is the body of the Purusha. That means the body of the divine. Just like our body is the temple of the divine for us, in the same way, the whole universe is the very temple, or we can even call the body of the divine. So it is called, there is a term called Virat Purusha. Virat is the whole, the entire universe is his body, so to say. So this yajna that is being constantly done, the sun is rising regularly, the moon comes up, the stars also appear in the skies, and then the rains come, and then there is fire, and so on and so forth. All of this is a part of this Virat Yajna, this offering of themselves for the sake of the others. This is the cycle of Yajna. This is the wheel of Yajna that has been created by the divine. So, Ishthan Bhogan Hivo Deva Dasyante Yaktairdata Yajna Shishtashina Santo Muchyante Sarva Kilvishaihi. The 13th verse says, those persons who eat what is left after sacrifice, that's called prasad in our language, whatever is offered and then it is consumed, they are released from all sin. While this is a gross representation of the concept of yajna, there is the subtle concept also. I will narrate it to you from the point of view of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition. When Mother Sharda Devi used to make offerings to Sri Ramakrishna after Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, before that I will come to Sri Ramakrishna's own experience. When Sri Ramakrishna used to make offerings to the Divine Mother at the temple, he used to see that a ray from the Divine Mother's eye used to come and it would fall on all the offerings that are kept, and it would absorb the essence of that, and then that ray of light would be absorbed into the Divine Mother. Saying this, Sri Ramakrishna says, when a devotee makes offerings to the divine, definitely with great sincerity, of course, definitely the divine comes and accepts them. When Holy Mother Sharda Devi would do the puja after Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, she would make the offerings and then she would keep. And she would actually see Sri Ramakrishna coming and taking a little bit from all of those offerings and tasting them. And he would be, if it is good, he would be very smiling. If it is not, then he would not be that that very happy about it. Then one day, Holy Mother had to. Did I mention it last time? Probably I mentioned it, so I won't repeat it. So in that platform in Vishnupur railway station, she cooked the food and the pot broke, and then the food was splattered over there, and then she just took the top portion and then offered it to Sri Ramakrishna. And now you made this happen, it is your fault. So now you take this immediately. They are all waiting for prasad. So let them first finish this so that we can do that. That is the loving offerings of that. The other day I heard another incident. One of our Swamis was Swami Premananda. He was the manager of our Belur Math, our headquarters. He was also a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, one day, it was the habit of Sri Ramakrishna to eat the cucumber along with a little bit of salt. They would put always a little bit of salt on his plate when they would offer cucumber. Now, this day, the Swami who was in charge of the puja, he cut all the fruits and also cut some cucumbers, and he forgot to keep a little bit of salt over there. And so he made the offerings, and it's a practice there. After you make the offerings, you let the deity eat it and you come out of the room for a little while, or you sit and do your your meditation. So they would come out and then they will finish other jobs before going back. Now, when he came out, Swami Premananda came running from somewhere and he started scolding this Swami. He said, "What did you do? What did you do?" He said, "What happened, Swamiji? You have not put salt there on the plate for Sri Ramakrishna today." And Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna came and told me, "Look, your assistant did not offer me salt over here. Just maybe you did not offer it. Go and put some more salt over there." Sri Ramakrishna had passed away many years ago. And then Swami Premananda sitting there in his office there, he could get this message and he came running to tell him, "This is what you have done, you didn't do it." So it just shows that when something is done with great respect, with great love and respect, the divine indeed, or the divine blessings indeed accompany it. They come and then accept this. Yes, if you believe in it, it's perfectly all right. If you do not believe in it, that is also up to us. But this is the tradition of the Vedic tradition, or our Hindu tradition, is that we always feel that whatever we offer, the Lord receives it, offered with Shraddha, with great reverence, with great love and respect. That's what we need to do. So Sri Krishna here, he says, Yajna Shishta Ashinas Santaha, those persons who will eat what is left after sacrifice and is released from all sin. Sri Ramakrishna himself used to take one grain of rice which is offered to Puri Jagannath. It is called Atke Prasad in Puri. Puri Jagannath Puri, they give you, it's in a elongated cloth bag. They put the rice and they sew it together, and then it is sold over there. So every day's offering, they dry it and then they put it in such bags. And so Sri Ramakrishna used to give one, if he found somebody had a bad, had an impure mind, or was disturbed in his mind, he would ask him to open his mouth and he would put that, and he would say, now your mind will become purified. So Atke Prasad. So every day he used to eat that prasad, Atke Prasad, one grain. There are some of our Swamis are also very particular about that. Every day they will have one grain of that prasad. That is the greatness of prasad. That is the greatness of this offered food, whatever. I mean, it's just the food, but also actions also, whatever actions we are performing, if we offer it in the same manner, with the same spirit as we offer the food to the divine, and then accept it or then take credit for what we have done, then that is perfectly all right. Yagnashishta punjate te tvagam papa. Those who cook food only for the sake of their own self without sharing it with others, they are degraded people who eat sin. Punjate te tvagam papa. I think we will conclude here, because we will take up another topic, Annad Bhavanti Bhutani Parjanyad Anna Sambhavaha. It is a continuity of this concept of Yajna, which we shall study when we meet next.